Do you ever feel like the lines that you use when you're drawing are a little bit rigid and awkward? You want them to be a little bit more free. You want to use your elbow to draw rather than your wrist. In this video, I'm going to teach you about searching lines, and I'm going to show you how learning to use them can make your drawings flow a little bit more easily and loosen you up to make the best block-in that you can make. All the clips that you see in this video are taken from a block-in bootcamp lesson, which is an intensive live course that I run on my Patreon every month. I challenged myself and my students to not use their eraser at all throughout the course of making this study. By the way, this led to some really awkward moments when I needed to move the ear around, but eventually I made it to the end without touching the drawing with my eraser at all.
It's going to start out, I think, really in the same way that we normally do, by just establishing the most basic proportions. And I'm letting my pencil be a little bit of a kind of reflection of where my eye is going. And you'll see me kind of tracing lines that really barely show up, right? Tracing lines that are going to be a part of the initial block-in, but I'm really just kind of feeling out where I think this set of proportions should be, and also where on my paper it should be. And so there's a lot of just keeping your hand and your pencil tip moving on the paper. The far left-hand side of the picture here, of course, is the high point on the left-hand side, and that's her hair, which is in shadow on the left. And then I'm studying that angle down to the chin, and I want to make a comparison to my source image. And I'm bringing my pencil back over, and I want to check that these two very abstract points are aligned with each other appropriately, right? Now that I have that, I can start to look at other correlating points, like where is the overall high point of the head, right? If I know kind of sort of a little bit where the chin is, can that give me any clue or any indication of where that high point is? If I look at my source image, I actually find that the high point is just about in the direct center in between these two. What I want you to be focusing on while you're drawing this is that fuzziness or furriness of line. If you find yourself honing in or zeroing in on a single line that has no width to it, that's the place where you're doing kind of the wrong thing for this drawing. When you're drawing, you don't want the weight of your pencil on the tip. In order to get a consistent pressure, I'm balancing always my finger on the paper, right? So every time I'm touching the paper, I'm touching it two places. I'm touching it here, but I'm also touching it here. And the second one allows me to kind of govern the pressure that's happening on the tip of the pencil. Right now, I think it's actually quite opportune that we actually just get into the shadow and light. I say this not because like we're super prepared or that we have like a lot of things that we're certain about, but one of the things that drawing this way kind of relies on is it relies on you being able to visually recognize things. We're focusing on keeping things, I hesitate to say soft, but essentially these lines are, in themselves, pretty soft, keeping our hands light and reserving our darker applications for a little bit later on. So it's not a technique that really relates so much to what the end of the drawing is, but very much a technique that's useful in that initial stage when you're trying to establish the basics of the drawing. One of the strengths of drawing in this way is that you use every part of the drawing, right? You allow your pencil to be a kind of tool for searching. There's two things to remember, right? One, proportion is a combination of measurements. It's not a single measurement, right? But also that they affect each other. So if your drawing looks overall long, you have two options. You can shorten it from top to bottom, or you can make it wider. Both of these will have the effect of altering the proportions in favor of your drawing eventually needs to be. I've got my paper stump here. It's quite saturated with graphite, but I'm just going to very lightly run it over the shadow in a perpendicular direction to get that slightly more even. And I'm going to lightly fill in the ear, at least the part of it that falls into shadow. What we're seeing here, we're seeing the edge of a shadow. The line of the jaw is a little bit below that. So you want to be careful when you're drawing an area like this to consider what it is you're seeing. Are you seeing the edge of a shadow? Are you seeing the edge of the jaw itself? You want your drawing to be clear enough that your inaccuracies stand out, that your inaccuracies are visible. I remember if some of you might know an artist, or know of an artist called Charles Dana Gibson, 20th century illustrator, American, known for his pen and ink work. Clever drawings. It's a story about him going in to visit this editor to kind of apply for a position. Charles Dana Gibson, I think, was quite young at the time. This editor said that his work wasn't great, or it wasn't perfect, but all the things that were wrong with it were like right there on the surface. They were fixable, they were changeable things because you could see them. They were not hidden in some attempt to be more clever than he was at the time. And so he hired him. If your drawing reveals the problems, right, you can deal with them. There is probably a correlation in your mind in between straight lines and sharp lines, and I want to destroy that correlation. A very soft and light line can be essentially expressing the same kind of straightness of a line that a hard-edged line can be. Right? These lines are like a yarn. They're made up of tons and tons of threads, right? And all of those threads have inside of them this essence of straightness, of being a straight line. A lot of drawing comes down to having a vision, and I think when we start to use words like vision, it gets very intimidating, right? That we're expected to, we associate having a vision with like really being an artist and making a very serious artwork. But having a vision just means that we can picture the destination, right? In the case of a great, beautiful, elaborate artwork, that vision can be very complex. But having a vision, really, it starts with being able to sense like predict things visually and to understand your process and how that process leads you to the conclusion that you want. It's a little bit of a nature-nurture thing, right, where some of your drawing is dictated by how well you execute, and some of it is how well you envision its destination.
That wraps up this video on searching lines. I just want to hit you with a couple quick bullet points about what you learned here. First and foremost, we talked about how searching lines are all about pressure. You want to let the tip of your pencil run very lightly across the surface of the paper. Remember, these lines aren't going to be lines that you commit to and that make it all the way into the final drawing. They are just a rough and light scaffolding that helps you establish the proportions and construction of your portrait on the paper. In addition to that, we can build on searching lines by continuing to apply over and over and over again till eventually we hone in on exactly the line that we want. By practicing this technique and incorporating it into your toolkit, you'll definitely be able to avoid the awkward and rough-looking starts that might be a part of your drawing process today. Remember that if you want to work along with this entire lesson, or you just want to make accountable progress in your portrait drawing and portrait painting, you can always go to my Patreon page and you're going to get a ton of highly specialized portrait lessons that are designed to help you get better at drawing and painting as efficiently as possible. If you found some value in this video, please remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so that every time a new lesson comes out, you find out about it. That's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.